What am I going to play? What do you mean, what am I going to play? We're just, This Week in Geek is what I do on Wednesdays. We just talk. It's essentially a talk show where that's all we talk about. We have topics every half hour. And so, like, that was the topic then, was State of the Game recap. This new topic that we have right now is actually, again, about the Division, because I am super curious about this. The discussion today about Episode 3, and people were bummed out because with Episode 3, there are no PvP changes, or fixes, or updates, I should say, coming, and it pissed off a lot of people. And I saw a very, very large it started the debate again about like PvE versus PvP, and it started that divide has always been there in the Division community. It was there in Division 1. I remember it very, very, very well. It's still there. PvPers feel like they are constantly getting dicked. Hint, they are. And PvPers, we still kind of think, that like we don't have enough content. We need more content too. We want more content. But almost every update for the past 6 to 8 months has been PvE focused. So the question I want to ask, and what I want to discuss right now with you guys here on Twitch, and if you're watching this on YouTube, hi, I want you guys to join the discussion too, so drop the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Is the Division 2 PvP, like primarily PvP with PvE off to the side? Is it primarily a PvE game with PvP? And what should it be? What do you want it to be? And what do you think the devs meant it to be? Because whenever I've heard this conversation all the time, and it always ends up in an argument, because some people truly believe that this game was supposed to be PvE up to endgame and PvP at endgame. Like Dark Zone was endgame, and that meant PvP. But because the Dark Zone was PvE VP, right? So it's player versus player versus environment, right? Because you also have PvE stuff there. You could play the Dark Zone and never play other players. That's how I primarily played the Dark Zone, because I'm not a PvPer. I don't like PvP. It's not fun for me. It's mostly boring, and I'm no good at it. So there's that too. But in saying that, I have always thought, and we had this discussion a couple weeks ago about if developers can make games for everybody anymore, right? Because the more they try to balance PvE with PvP in mind, and even though they balance them separately, PvP suffers. And whenever they try to balance, have they ever actually? Yeah, and whenever they nerf talents, especially in Division 1, it happened a lot more, but even in Division 2, when they nerf things because of PvP, then PvE suffers badly. Like, to stop the whole movement chicken dance issue that they had in Division 1, they changed the movement and the way the character models look and move in game, and nobody likes that. So it actually hurt all of the game. You die a lot in PvP? Yeah, no, so do I. But I'm curious what your opinions are about whether you think the developers intended for the Division 1, because that very first trailer that they ever showed made it look like the entire end game of Division was supposed to be PvP. And so I'm curious if you think that's what they intended, right? Where you play through the game and it's like an adventure game, like a single player or even multiplayer, RPG, and then you get to the end and PvP is the end game. Because ultimately, PvP could be the end game for a lot of people, right? PvP, always different, right? That's one of the things that PvPers really, really like about it, is even though the builds and the meta and whatever is the same for a while, every time you log in, you get different things, because you're fighting different people, your fights take place in different places, right? Even if it's the same Dark Zone, you're at different places in the Dark Zone. So it has that sense of randomness and excitement, I think, that a lot of people like. So maybe that's what the developers wanted. I think it might have been, but I think balancing a game like that is impossible. So I think it failed. in that respect. And then you run into the situation that not everybody wants to PvP. And unless you make a game like Tarkov or Fortnite or Call of Duty or Modern Warfare, that's primarily PvP, and its focus is multiplayer PvP. Bam, off the bat, you know it. That's why you're buying the game. I don't think that this formula works, but in saying that, I also don't think that that's what this game was intended to be. I am in the pool of people that believe this game is primarily PvE. It's meant to be primarily PvE, and PvP is like 25 to 30% of what the total overall experience is supposed to be. Because if you market a game towards PvP, then you're going to get PvP crowd in there, but then you're not going to have PvE players. And I think there's more PvE players than PvP. I mean, I know Call of Duty is big and has a big following and stuff like that, but in this genre, the looter shooter genre, you have to play PvE to get your loot. That's going to attract PvEers. A lot of PvEers don't like PvP. We just don't. I like to casually kind of go through play. I like intensity. I like difficult stuff. I like having fun with friends, stuff like that. I just don't like doing it against other people. I mean, I've been playing UFC 3 a lot on stream lately, and I get people coming in all the time wanting to play me, and I'm like, dude, I'm having fun. I'm beating the shit out of some computer guys, right? It's just, it's fun. That's what's fun for me. It's just kind of running through, and, you know, even when we were doing the raid and we were pounding our dicks up against the wall, because, you know, that first week or two, you know, it was a pain in the ass. That was fun. That was challenging. That was awesome. And PvP has never been that for me. I think the best balance is for a game to have both, but the gear you get in PvE doesn't transfer to the PvP side, and the PvP arena has its own gear grind. I completely agree with that, Gail. I've said that forever. I've said that since the inception, since launch of of Division 1. Because I always used to get pissed that I had to go into the Dark Zone, because at vanilla Destiny 1, Division 1, you had to go in the Dark Zone to get gear pieces, right? Like gear sets. Striker, you couldn't get Striker outside the Dark Zone. Unless the first incursion, because I don't think, did that one drop with gear? I can't. Yeah, it was, but you only got one drop per week. So, like, you can only run it once per week per character. And then you were shit out of luck. So, if you didn't get your striker piece that you wanted, you were SOL. So, you would have to go into the Dark Zone. And it was like, it was so frustrating for me as a primarily PvE player to not be able to get PvE gear that can help me in the raid or in the incursion. I couldn't get it without PvPing, and I think that is stupid as hell. I know PvPers will argue that, but on the flip side, I think it's dumb that PvP players and players that just want to fight other players have to go through and grind out the same mission 800 times to try to get something, right? I truly think that's stupid as hell too. Can't force people to PvP if they don't want to. Exactly. I mean, it's been one of the biggest complaints in Destiny forever. That whenever they have a new exotic, and if that exotic has any bit of like PvP grind, but it's a gun that's probably going to be primarily used in PvE, people get pissed. And I used to get pissed off too, because I think it's stupid, but that's also because I hate the Crucible. PvP gear, well, and that's the thing, like, I think there should be PvP specific talents, specific perks. I think PvP gear should give you a boost. You know how right now there's like, when you play PvE and then you go in, they've got like the normalization or whatever, but even without normalization, like weapons, gear, or weapon skill, stuff like that don't do as much damage to other players as they do to computer mobs, because the computer mobs have infinitely more health than we do. I think PvP gear should boost that percentage slightly each like tier, each new piece that you get. And I made that argument in a video, and the big pushback against that, and this makes sense, the big pushback against that is it creates a system where the rich get richer and the weak or the new people can never get it because they just go in and they get pounded by people that have the best gear. If the newest level of gear always like continue like a power creep in PvP and make you do better in PvP or help you do better in PvP, then those noobs or those people that aren't good, if they go in, let's say a level 1 new PvPer goes into the Dark Zone, he's got no PvP gear, so he's going in there to get the PvP gear, and the first group he runs into are people that are level 50 with all the best gear, and he just gets annihilated and can't do anything, he's never going to go PvP again. So that's the problem with that, I think. So you can be level 1 PvE or level 30 PvP, and you can be a true tryhard, go for 30 on both, but you can't use gear. And that's the problem with it. That's the problem with PvP specific gear. And I'll be honest, I didn't think about that till I think a developer told me that. I can't remember if it was somebody on Twitter. I think it was Steinlander, but I'm not sure. But what do you think the division is supposed to be? Do you think it's supposed to be PvP with PvE? And I wish we had more PvPers in here, because I know the PvP crowd thinks that this game is supposed to be primarily PvP, and I really want to have that debate, because I really disagree with that. I know Chris from Upper Echelon, Chris Sanctionite from Upper Echelon, he has always said that he bought the division specifically for PvP, because that very first E3 trailer made it seem to him that it was going to be a PvP game. And I can see where he got that. That first trailer. We're going to watch it right now for nostalgia factor. Let me find... Is this it? I'm not sure if this is it. I'm looking for it right now, so we'll continue the discussion once I find it. We'll watch it. I think solo players should be in solo servers and groups. I mean, but the same thing happens. I know I said if he runs into a group of level 30s, but the same situation would happen if that player runs into one person that has level 30 gear or is level 30, right? That person is still going to annihilate everybody that they come across. And that person that's lower is going to be humped and be super bummed out. Yeah, so here it is. You guys can hear it. I'm switching it. There we go. If that's too loud, let me know. Because I do want to talk over this. I don't have my cam on this screen, so you guys can't see me. But this is the E3 reveal from 2013. Now, it's 7 minutes long, but I don't want to watch this part of it. I want to watch where he gets into gameplay. And you tell me if this sets up the game as primarily PvP. Right, you hear the gunshots. You can see he's grouped.
The store was empty. I heard that gunfire. Nick, check your map. See if there's anything in the area.
I hate these things. I'm so glad they don't do this anymore. With these stupid scripted bullshit. Okay, so we got a vendor, events. I mean, that's a PvE map right there. You couldn't go into that agent server. I mean, and that's kind of what they tried to do with Division 1, right? With the different levels in the Dark Zone.
I'm low on packs, though. We have to leave it.
But then that's the problem. Dude, that's the one thing I wished Division 1, and if they make Division 3, I want it to be this. I want Division 3 to deliver on what this trailer promised. I really do. Like, with the map on the wrist, that whole thing with like the judging whether or not that person, like scanning that person,
Could check that out.
the overlays on screen, like
The police station first.
so cool. I've always been so sad that the game just never, like there's people walking in the street, like more people walking in the street. But anyway,
I don't see anything outside.
this is actually a dark zone.
Go inside.
Well, no, I remember at the end. This isn't Dark Zone though. This is Brooklyn, because you do this mission. This is where you get the police M4.
Wow. Yep. I'm gonna go in.
Okay. I've got my group heal loaded, so if you guys want to check your skills and switch it up, you can.
God, I still love that. But Jack, they could do that. The only problem again that you would run into with that is if, you know, players had the ability to then go in and, let's say it is level lock, right? Let's say it's every 10 levels or every 5 levels. You get to level 4 and you grind up the best gear in level 4, and it's not as bad. But I think that's the problem, that you would still end up with that, right? The people that have the really, really good gear keep it from the people that don't. Maybe again. No, you're right. You're right.
Easy. Okay.
Man, so I wonder if that means that Brooklyn at one point was supposed to be a dark zone.
Nice. Thank you. Hey guys, what's up? Oh, what's up, Chris? Welcome to the battle.
God, that tablet. I still wish that would have made it in game.
Hold on, I'm getting shot at now.
Yeah, go around the back.
Alright, moving. Oh shit, hold on, I think we got one more.
Watch out, on the left,
Yep.
Dead.
On the roof.
Yeah, oh, there he is, okay.
No one doing it.
Wow,
Oh,
he's
he's
like
gonna be an elite, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll move to mark him now.
I can't see him.
Dude, the
I cannot get
the
him.
scripted chatter irritates the hell out of me always.
Hold on, I think I got him.
Yeah, got him.
Nice.
Okay, that's done. Let's check out the inside.
Alright, I need to hop out. I'll see you guys later though.
See you later.
Did you guys notice the bullet physics
You guys coming?
going through the sign, doing damage beyond, like penetrating through that sign? Okay. So this right here
Oh, there's some cops locked up in here.
is what sold me on the game.
Okay.
But going from outside to inside, the disrepair, this reminded me of Resident Evil 2. And like rescuing people and scavenging water bottles. Like, I thought you needed water to live, food to live. Like, that's what I thought you needed all of that stuff for.
The armory is out back. Take whatever you need.
And
Code is SH-1020.
like, honestly, that was my biggest letdown when I got it. Which is why when Survival first came out, I love Survival.
In this room.
Okay, I'm going for the armory. Should be back here.
And I always thought that survival mechanics should have been a regular thing in the game. I remember pushing for that before Division 2 came out. I wanted your clothing to actually have an effect on
Let's go.
how warm you were. And the warmer you are, the more water you need to maintain, you know, not being sick and not being dehydrated.
Right. Jackpot. You gonna get the box?
Nope, that's next.
Yeah, this part too. I thought every gun that you looted was gonna do that. That would have been just dope.
Lose it.
Okay, I've got my flare ready to go.
Cool. I'll get the door.
It's sad that it took an entire game for the MK17 to be badass.
Dude, check out Manhattan.
We should go over there later. Alright, extracting. Got about 90 seconds.
Oh, that's right.
Whoa. It's another group of players. Brace for PvP.
You guys ready?
Yeah, so that there was supposed to be 2 dark zones. There was, because look, you've got Manhattan and you've got the dark zone here, and then you've got Brooklyn, which is a dark zone here. You're right. Holy shit, look how big the map was originally supposed to be. Yeah. Look how big the map was originally supposed to go all the way over here. Or at least that's what they wanted to show it as, right? Maybe that's just showing, whatever. But yeah, so you're right. That was a Dark Zone, and that was PvP, but that didn't tell me, like, I never saw that and was like, oh, this game is going to be PvE or PvP. And maybe that's because at E3 they also talked about that it would be PvE as well. But I never thought it was going to be primarily PvP. I never did, and I don't understand how anybody got that idea. Because I thought they were pretty clear from the beginning that it wasn't. And so whenever I hear people say that they bought the game specifically because it was going to be a PvP game, I don't understand where they got that idea from. And maybe it's because of that, but that's why I've always thought this game is PvE number one. PvE with a PvP element. That's what it's always been for me. Sorry, I just saw on Twitter Agent Putt put a possible hint towards where the chameleon will drop, and it's coded in a light refracting technology designed by the DARPA research team, and he was like, maybe in the DARPA research labs mission, and I was like, it's almost like they should have taken my fucking advice in my YouTube video about how cool the Pentagon would have been. So I need to reply to that really quick. I'm saying if only someone had an idea about how to utilize the DARPA labs for a replayable content loop. Who could it be? GIF, funny, sarcastic. And send. That DARPA mission is long? No, it is. It's super long. And that goes back to what I was saying before about the Camp White Oak and what my fear is about these. Right? Can you imagine if this is like an end drop from like the zoo mission, right? Let's say the zoo mission had a drop that only dropped for the main boss. And I'm sure groups can probably fly through that thing super quick, but man, that mission's long as shit. And it's more empty than anything else. It's super, super empty. And it's super fucking boring. And it's super fucking long. And there's no way to get past some of it. Like, some of it you just have to fucking deal with. It's irritating as hell. There are 2 new heroics coming in Title Update 7, Episode 3. More than likely posted this on Reddit a couple months ago. Pentagon invaded and DARPA Research Labs invaded. Yeah, so I bet you anything that's probably coming in DARPA Research Labs invaded. Zoo mission invaded is a bitch. I had to do it for something. Because it irritated me that when I think that got added into something else. Or no, it was one of the weekly apparel missions. I had to do that one on Invaded, and I hated it because it took so fucking long. Those things suck. So like, I know that we all want replayable content, right? We want to be able to get our exotics. We want to be able to do stuff and have it be a challenge. But man, that's stupid. But so what do you think? Do you think the developers intended the Division to be primarily PvP at endgame or primarily PvE? Let's take a poll. And if you're watching on YouTube, please let me know down below what you think. Because I still think the game was primarily supposed to be PvE even at launch of Division 1. I think the intention was to be PvE with a PvP component for people that wanted it. And I think PvE is always going to be first in this game. I think it always should be first in this game. I know that for large portions of Division 1's life cycle, it is, and I will absolutely give credit to the PvP community on this, because it was the PvP community that kept this game alive. It really, really was, for a good portion, especially through 1.3, until 1.4. And then when 1.4 made PvE somewhat acceptable, I think that shift started to change and it started going back to PvE. But it's always been PvP that gets like the big views on Twitch. YouTube videos mostly are PvP and or build oriented. And so I think the game definitely has a PvP heart, and it needs that heart. But I think without PvE, we wouldn't. If they were to, somebody said today, fuck PvE. They need to focus on the hardcore PvP people and give them what they want and make this game for them. If that happened, there would be no Division 3. Because the hardcore PvP crowd is probably 5 or 10% of the entire player base. And if you make a game, you can't go too casual and make a game like Destiny 2 did and make 90% of the game for the 90%. But you have to have at least a quarter to half of the game for the casual audience, because that's where your money comes from. Whether people want to admit it or not, the casual audience, the casuals, are the ones that spend the most money on the game, because just by numbers, there's more casual people than there are hardcores. And you cannot focus a game on the minority of players, because your next game will never get made. They will never make enough money to make another game. It was supposed to be PvE with a PvP aspect. I completely agree. Can't PvP without doing PvE content. And that's exactly it. That's my exact point. Like, you have to play PvE to get to PvP. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. That's just the way it is. Who sings that damn song? It's not Michael Bolton. It's Michael something. I can't remember. But anyway, that basically wraps up that section of This Week in Geek. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I really appreciate you guys being here. Let me know in the comments down below what you think the Division 2 was supposed to be, and what you actually think it is, and what you would want it to be. I think that's the most important thing, because I don't think the game right now. I mean, it's not a surprise to say, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that this game is not what anybody wants it to be. So, if you could make it change from here on out, would you want it to be PvE with a PvP sprinkle, or PvP with a PvE sprinkle? And I will say this, for the record, if you made it this far and you're a PvPer, I want PvPers to get what they want. I do. You guys need content. You guys deserve it, quite frankly. So I hope you get it. It won't be episode 3. Hopefully year 2 we'll have some really cool PvP changes, or new modes, something. I don't know. It'd be really, really cool if it did. I hope it does, for your guys' sake, because you guys definitely deserve it. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Episode 3 will come out tomorrow if you're watching this on YouTube. That will come out tomorrow, and that will be on Crunchtime for developers and stuff like that. Right now on Twitch, we're going to transition to that right now. So if you ever want to join these live, you can find me twitch.tv/IamJanko live. Wednesdays is when we record this, and yeah, it starts at about 7 o'clock, and every half hour we change those. So anytime between 7 and 8:30, come on in, and we do a free-for-all at 8:30, so we can talk about anything you guys want to talk about. I love you guys. You guys rock. Thank you very much for tuning in, and until I see you, please keep on living the dream. Oh!